Welcome to Awesome Movie Year, the podcast where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year. I'm Josh Bell, film critic and writer, and I'm joined by my co-host.
I'm Jason Harris, filmmaker, comedian. And if I sing in a smooth voice, I can sexually assault you in the Old West.
I like that.
That is so true. Unfortunately, that's the lesson that we've learned from today's movie. So many
good lessons in this one.
Yeah. Lots of unfortunate things to learn from this movie today. So we are here at the beginning of our new season on the films of 1946. We are returning to the 1940s, which went quite well for us the first time in 1941. We'll see how it goes this time. I feel like maybe we're not off to the best start, but we'll see how it comes up. I personally am excited to be back here in the 1940s in the golden age of cinema. And as always, we are beginning with the number one movie at the box office. It is the epic Western melodrama Duel in the Sun from director King Vidor, and more importantly, producer David O. Selznick, who is really the auteur of this film.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to call it the unepic Western. And that, like,
it's an attempted epic. Can we say that?
I would say there's one sequence with like a horse roundup and people almost fighting that almost makes it epic. But every time they get to a point where you're like, oh, they're going to juice it up to an epic level, they just do something else instead.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the scale of the story, maybe it's less epic. It's focused on basically a love triangle and this one family. It doesn't take place over the course of as many years or in as many locations as you might think. But in terms of the production, this lavish production, which was hugely expensive and took years, and Selznick as the producer with the tight grip on the production, cycled through multiple directors, along with King Vidor, who is the credited director of this film. And Selznick, who is best known as the producer of Gone with the Wind, which we discussed in our 1939 season, was still sort of chasing the success of that film and expected or wanted or hoped that this movie, also based on a popular historical novel, would be the new Gone with the Wind. And obviously it is not.
So what you're saying is Selznick had this vision of a time where America was great and he wanted to make it great again via racism in these two films. Is that what I'm getting? Because that's what I'm feeling like. So
it seems like, you know, I wouldn't go so far as to say that Selznick wanted to return to the good old days of the South. Selznick, the Jew, probably was not necessarily aiming for that, but wanted to maybe evoke that for viewers because he thought they would want that.
Yeah, as we know, there are no Jews in MAGA, so that makes perfect sense there.
Well, it's not exact, but I mean, in the antebellum South, and this is not. This is post.
This is the Old West. So,
yes,
so while we
West.
Still have racism towards the black maid, one of the same ones who was in Gone with the Wind, we also have racism towards Native Americans.
We do, and Mexicans a bit, it seems like. But yes, the the African American maid who is very racistly depicted in this film is not a slave. She is theoretically a free woman, could leave if she wanted to, but does not because she's too dumb.
She's happy. She's happy, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Right. She's happy, but in part, she's happy because she's not intelligent.
Yeah, so
is the message here.
Right. It's Butterfly McQueen, who played Vashti, and she was Chrissy in Gone with the Wind. She said, I didn't mind playing a maid the first time because I thought that was how you get into the business. But after I did the same thing over and over, I resented it. I didn't mind being funny, but I didn't like being stupid.
Yeah, that sounds like a very accurate reflection of her role in this film and probably, unfortunately, most of her career. I mean, she's not the only one among Black actors of this time period to have experienced that and be stuck playing just servant characters of various types. There weren't very many, if any, roles for Black actors, until you get into like Sidney Poitier, who we discussed in our seasons in the 1960s. So, yeah, not a great situation for her or for the characters in this film. But it is based on the novel by Niven Bush, which was a successful novel in 1944, starring Jennifer Jones as Pearl Chavez, the half Native American, half white, or perhaps half Latina, given her last name. It's not entirely clear to me in the film, but a half breed, as they call her, who goes
Shame
to
on
live
you,
with her, live with her distant relatives in Texas on this giant ranch, and immediately is torn between the two brothers, the good brother played by Joseph Cotten and the bad boy brother played by Gregory Peck. And Jason, I know that cousin fucking is a favorite subject of yours for films. So.
In general, I'm all about the let's make, how I have a non-Christmas Christmas movie list.
Yeah.
Get ready for the cousin fucker list.
Nice.
All right.
But I mean, this is the Old West. Were they first cousins? They were like half cousins almost. I'm not exactly.
Yeah, they're
the first cousins were her dad and the lost lover, Laura Lee, or whatever.
They were second cousins.
So okay, so then these guys are even further removed. It's probably still legal in half the U.S. These two got together.
Oh, I'm sure it is. As I think we discussed, I think it was in our Out of Africa episode where I think were first cousins, maybe first or second cousins. But even marrying your first cousin is legal in a lot of the U.S. So whatever.
Where? Asking for a friend.
Yeah, I think it's quite a few states, honestly. We probably went over this go check out the Out of Africa episode where we previously discussed cousin fucking.
Should I create a tag on the website?
Yeah. Joseph Selznick presents Duel in the Sun. This movie has it all. Sexual assault, racism, incest, and more sexual assault and victim blaming.
Yeah. It has
the number one movie in America.
Right. What does it say that this movie was number one? It again, it was sort of delayed. It premiered at the very, very end of 1946, just in time to qualify for the Oscars, and went into wider release in 1947. It grossed $20.4 million on its budget of $6.48 million, which was a huge budget and equivalent to something like $100 million now. I mean, Selznick spent a lot of money on this. And given his attempt to recreate the success of Gone with the Wind, he did not get there in terms of, even if this was the number one movie, it supposedly just broke even given the budget and the fact that they spent so much to promote it. It was nominated just for 2 Oscars and did not win either of those. Jennifer Jones as Pearl Chavez was nominated for Best Actress, and Lillian Gish, who plays
the OG,
the matriarch of the family, was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, neither of whom won. So I feel like this is one of those movies that lots of people went to see just because it was a thing and has been forgotten.
I mean, he has like you said, a lot of stars in there. The Lionel Barrymores in there as well. You mentioned the 2 male and female leads. So I mean, it's like I could see in 1946. Oh, it's a big Western and it's got all these major actors, and it's the same guy who did Gone with the Wind, which was epic. So we got to go see this, and I don't mind that it's forgotten. But I was happy to see Lillian Gish in a talkie, because Lillian Gish is one of the first queens of cinema all the way back to the early 1900s in silent film. She was a huge star, and she was a great actor. And so it was nice to see her do so well in a talkie as well.
Yeah, she didn't do as much. She acted kind of sporadically after the silent era, but she is good in this film. I think the leads here, the 3 main actors, are all miscast. They can be good in other roles, but they just don't seem right for their parts. But yeah, Jason, I think you're right that this is the equivalent of one of those big Oscar bait movies that we have now, where they pack it with a bunch of major stars, and it's, based on some popular source material, and they spend a ton of money on it. And Selznick clearly wanted that, not only to make money, but also to win awards. And it did not work out.
I mean, he made good money off of it. So, he got what he wanted.
Maybe. I mean, again, it supposedly just broke even. Maybe he made money over time on it, and it certainly didn't reach the heights of Gone with the Wind. So
nothing's reached the heights of Gone with the Wind, man.
Well, that's right. But even, I mean, in 1946, Gone with the Wind wasn't what it is now. I mean, it hadn't lasted for 90 years almost or whatever as one of the most popular movies of all time.
For 7 years.
Right. But you could conceivably imagine that, he could reach the heights of a movie that he made 7 years earlier.
Do you ever watch those Lillian Gish silent films?
I don't know if I've seen anything of her.
Yeah, man. She's, like I said, I think she might be the first in my film watching, like the first movie star that I saw, right? Like that's how old and like how much of a draw she was as a silent film star. So worth checking out.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't. What silent films of hers have you seen?
Dude, I don't know, man. It's like, I mean, they're from like 1913, and stuff like that. So I watched some in college.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I've seen a good amount of silent films, but I don't believe. Yeah, I mean, she's in like The Birth of a Nation and
Your
Intolerance,
favorite movie.
the D.W. Griffith film. I mean, I'm just thinking of very famous Broken Blossoms. All of those are D.W. Griffith films that are very well known, but I have not seen those. So yeah, I've seen her.
Maybe I saw True Heart Susie. Maybe that was one of them. I don't know, man.
Oh, okay.
Broken Blossoms, maybe. But yeah, I mean, she's a all-time legend.
She is. And I mean, this cast is full of people like that. Lionel Barrymore is a legend. You've got Walter Houston in this film as well. And even the main stars, Jennifer Jones and Joseph Cotten and Gregory Peck were newer stars, but they were all big names that are up and coming. It's the equivalent now of you get a movie that has, Jacob Elordi and Leonardo DiCaprio and
Disagree
or something like that.
Disagree.
No?
I mean, no. Joseph Cotten already 1941. We had already seen him in.
Right.
Disagree, Josh. Joseph Cotten was already a well-established star, and that brings me back to when you're saying miscast. I do wonder about the casting. Were they miscast, or was like the Joseph Cotten character? There was just nothing on the page. There really wasn't much on the page for him. But then again, and I'm thinking back to Citizen Kane, and he's basically the best friend with like the morals. Like he really did make that work. So maybe you're right there. And then luckily we got the third man a couple years later. So I'm happy. I'm happy with Joseph Cotten.
Joseph Cotten is great. And I've seen him in a lot of things, including some things that are not very good. And he can elevate those. Yeah, like this. Or especially in his later career when he got stuck in a lot of like horror and sci-fi B movies and stuff. But yeah, I don't think he just plays this like stolid, upstanding guy. I don't think Gregory Peck is right for the bad boy. Jennifer Jones doesn't really work as this supposed seductress. But I think you're right, too, that the characters are not well written. I think they're very inconsistent and all over the place. And it's hard to get a handle on who they even are. And the acting, the actors clearly don't have a handle on that either. Jennifer
Jones did get an Oscar nod for this. And
she did.
She was, at this point, at least Selznick's lover, if not wife. So
yeah, she was, and she eventually did become his wife. And he devoted the later part of his career to sort of shepherding her career. But this is not. I feel like this is not her best work, despite the Oscar nomination. So
should I take a new lover this summer, Josh?
Only if you can. Shepherd their career in lavish motion pictures.
Well, sorry, ladies, you're on your own this summer.
So critics were mixed on this film. Bosley Crowther in the New York Times was not a fan. He said, despite all his flashy exploitation, Mr. Selznick can't long hide the fact that his multi-million-dollar Western is a spectacularly disappointing job. Those are harsh words for a movie upon which the producer of some memorably fine films has lavished some mighty production and close to a dozen stars. Those are also harsh words about a picture which promises very much, and which, even for all its disappointments, has some flashes of brilliance in it. Some of the compositions, achieved with color and musical backgrounds, evoke sudden and singular sensations that are conspicuously superior to the whole. Oh, brother, if only the dramatics were up to the technical style. But they're not, nor are the performances, which are strangely uneven, all of them.
Yeah, within the first 10 minutes, we get this great like dance sequence in a old saloon or whatever, and you're like, oh, okay, he's putting it all on the screen. You got this lavish set and this like really, 100 people in the room for this dance sequence. And then it just, and then there's one other dance sequence like an hour later. And those might be the two highlights of the film. Like, I could say maybe the last scene, but otherwise there really wasn't. There was like a lot of talk about action and very little action.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, I think, going back to Gone with the Wind again, obviously there's this big romantic story there, but there's also the scope of the war and the upheaval and all that. And you have the scene with the showdown between the senator, Lionel Barrymore's character, the family patriarch, and the railroad company. And that, I think, as you mentioned, you see the resources there, this huge amount of extras and all on horseback and whatever. But there's not a battle. Eventually he backs down. And that's really the only moment that I think you get the same sense of like, this is a historical story during a moment where things are changing and there's big conflict. Otherwise, it is just Jennifer Jones kind of flailing herself between these two guys.
Yeah. You know where they wouldn't have backed down, guys? Heaven's Gate.
Mm. This is probably an influence on Heaven's Gate.
The movie I think of that we covered is another grand Western with a name producer who is trying to do something and put a bunch of stars in it and has just failed miserably, was Wild Wild West.
I don't know about that. Heaven's Gate I can see because it's got the sweeping drama and, the upheaval and all that and the historical. I don't think Duel in the Sun would have had a giant spider robot in
it. I guess we watched different movies.
I guess we did.
Josh and I argued, Dave. If it was just called In the Sun, we would have felt it was accurate. Yeah. Is there really a duel in this film? I would say possibly the last scene. Josh mentioned the brothers standoff, but I don't even know if there's a real duel in this movie.
I don't think there is. No, I'm with you on that. I think it's just it's a love triangle that doesn't really go anywhere.
It's a metaphorical duel, maybe.
Yeah, I guess so.
A metaphorical duel in the literal sun.
Yes. Wow, that's really deep. So,
oh no.
Selznick, you pulled one over on us.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, Selznick didn't come up with the title. It's the title of the novel.
I know.
So maybe there's more of a duel in the novel. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, he, the author was like, yeah, he made a movie. It's fine. It wouldn't have been what I would have done, but whatever. I got paid. So who am I to complain?
Right. He made money and it helps him sell more books. So he was happy.
Yeah, exactly.
So I feel like these other reviews, it's almost like they see this movie as like too big to fail. Like the praise is just that it's substantially large. But William Brogdon in Variety said, the familiar Western formula reaches its highest commercialization in Duel in the Sun. It is raw, sex-laden Western pulp fiction, told in 10, 20, 30 style. As a production, it adds no class distinction to David O. Selznick, but assures him a top commercial success. The star lineup is impressive. Vastness of the Western locale is splendidly displayed in color by mobile cameras. Footage is overwhelmingly expansive, too much so at times considering its length. King Vidor's direction keeps the playing in step with production aims. He pitches the action to heights in the top moments and generally holds the overall mood desired.
Yeah, I mean, I can see, and you can see that too, right? The colorization of film is still somewhat new at this point. So you're seeing this grand. I had no problem with the I like this, like the scenery and the environment and the ranch. Yeah. I thought all that was good. Like they found an apt location, Thousand Oaks, California, to shoot this, but it does look like one of those great like old Western movies, right? So it's just the rest of it didn't, it's like, wow, look at this great old Western ranch. Ooh, Ma's calling him in for dinner. Like,
right? I mean, that's what they do in Westerns. Ma calls you in for
I know.
dinner. That's what happens.
Ooh, they're putting the horse in the stable.
Got to put the horse. You can't leave the horse out. You got to put the horse in the stable.
Ooh, he's singing by the moonlight.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of nice.
No, he has a good voice.
Yeah. I don't know if that was Gregory Peck singing or if they dubbed him, but he does sound nice. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, though. The visuals are good, and there are some really striking moments. I mean, I think there's one moment where the senator is sitting outside, kind of like reflecting on his regrets, and the sky is all like red, and it just looks beautiful. I mean, it looks very artificial and deliberately so, I think, but it looks gorgeous. I mean, there's some great matte paintings and things like that, along with the set design and the costumes and the actual real locations that they shot at as well. So I think you look at it, you look at a frame from it or something, and you expect it to be more of that larger scale kind of story.
I would agree. I mean, I from the title, I thought we were going to get like, a classic Western. I don't know. The whole thing is so strange to me. Transcendence, that's another one we covered where you're like, okay, you did a thing, but now what are you going to do now that you did the thing and then never do a thing? Movies like that are strange where it's like it offers you this big promise. Like if there was no storm in The Perfect Storm, I'd be pretty pissed, right? I mean, I'd be happy the guys lived, spoiler alert, but you know what I mean? It's like, hey, twisters, there's no tornadoes in this movie, right? You got to deliver on what you're advertising, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think we would have hoped for some kind of more climactic showdown between the brothers, really. As we were talking about, I mean, the final confrontation between Pearl and Lute, the bad brother, played by Gregory Peck, is sort of that moment of catharsis or whatever and violence that you expect out of a movie like this, but not quite.
Would you have really liked it better if there was a duel? Because I feel like I wouldn't have. I
needed some action, baby.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would have depended on if it was like a well-staged sequence, but I feel like it could be. So, I mean, just like I would have been interested if there was a big like battle at the railroad showdown. That would have been,
I wanted that
to see.
But then, of course, they did that 1940s thing where Lionel Barrymore sees that the soldiers are holding the American flag, and they're like, "I once fought for this flag. I shall not take arms up against it now." Right? So
I wondered about that moment though, because prior to that moment, I assumed he had fought for the Confederacy.
It sure sounds like it.
Yeah, but I guess not.
I once fought for that flag. That is why I will be attending the Ultimate Fighting Championship on the White House lawn.
Mm-hmm. I think the senator would enjoy that. He would probably be there. So finally, Edwin Shallert in the LA Times, who spends like more than half the review just talking about the Oscar prospects for this movie, which is why I to me, it seems like that's exactly what's been going on. But in terms of the movie itself, he said, anticipated as one of the most stirring film events of 1946, Duel in the Sun more than lives up to expectations in a multitude of ways. It is a picture of terrific, in fact, well-nigh bewildering impact. It embodies a strange, tragical drama of love, hate, and death, set against a wild western desert wastes and mesas and fierce mountain fastnesses. A tremendously strong production. Lurid and violent in the handling of many of its scenes, it still possesses a bigness of design which commands appreciation and respect. The film is a synthesis of practically everything that was ever put in a Western, as well as many things that were never dreamt of before, in connection with even the most super, super duper opera of the plains.
Yeah, I mean, we've already said it. They left out the one major thing that you want in a Western, which is a climactic, gunfight, shootout, whatever. Which like we have a very tiny one. The 2 Academy Award nods were for Gish for supporting actress and Jones for lead actress. So, I mean, #1 movie of the year, didn't get the Oscars. I think it did fine for itself.
Yeah, I mean, I would think, we were just talking about the visuals, and to me, this seems like a movie that maybe would have gotten nominations for things like production design. Yeah. Yeah, and all that, and it just didn't. So I guess the Academy wasn't as impressed
They got
as
Avatar.
audiences were. Yeah, but again, as he says here, it's almost just like it's so overwhelmingly large that you have to just like give it a pass, and I don't think that's really the
No,
case.
of
But
course not. I mean, the movie was large in scale, so did it really need a story? Of course it needed a story, man. Come on, bro. What are we
right.
doing, guy?
I mean, I agree. I feel like that's sometimes what you get with movies like Avatar now, where it's just like, it overwhelmed the senses with the amount of money that they put into it on the screen. So I, will give it a pass. And I don't think that's correct.
The buck stops here at Awesome Movie Year, fellas.
Yes.
Don't try that crap with us.
Calling them out.
Yeah, we are.
So I assume none of us had seen this film before. Were you? I think Jason, you watched a couple of King Vidor movies, or maybe
I did. I watched The Crowd, a 1928 silent film, which is pretty interesting. I mean, it's it plays with humor and the idea. 28, doing it right before the Great Depression is interesting because it's a rise and fall story, and it almost is predictive of what's going to happen. But the dude can shoot sequences. There's no doubt about that. He's a legend. So I wanted to just get a little more acclimated.
Yeah, I wanted to watch that. I didn't end up doing that. I did watch Stella Dallas with Barbara Stanwyck, which is another famous King Vidor film and one of Stanwyck's most well-known roles. Also very melodramatic like this with some questionable sexual politics. I can't say I was crazy about that. I had not seen this one before, but I've seen a couple other King Vidor movies, including a silent, I think also from 1928 called Show People, which is one of the earliest showbiz satires, which is a fascinating movie to watch because you can watch that movie from 1928 and see things that they still do in like Hollywood, self-aware parodies right now, including King Vidor making a cameo as himself in that film. So, I mean, and that's like this ridiculous comedy. He's got obviously like this huge amount of range. He's this journeyman. He's the guy that you can hire if you're David O. Selznick and be like, just do this, and he'll do it. He can come in and be professional. Along with King Vidor, other directors who worked on this in some capacity: Joseph von Sternberg, William Dieterle, William Cameron Menzies, Otto Brouwer, Sidney Franklin, and David O. Selznick himself. So to various degrees.
Well, can't win them all.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say about the background of this movie, Jason?
So the author, Nevin Bush, wrote the novel after working on the script for The Westerner. And he was like, I could make a better Western than that. And he said the idea was simply, instead of writing about two guys and wondering how to get a girl in, write about a girl and let the guys come in as they happen. Having a woman was new, especially a very sexy woman in a family consisting entirely of men. It was dynamite, like the whore in the lighthouse.
Sounds like a really enlightened perspective from that guy.
Well, I mean, what I took from that is like, I mean, I haven't gone back and done my history of Westerns, but the idea of like, hey, let's twist the mechanism and make the crux of it the woman as like the kind of, the motor of the whole story.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, and unfortunately, she's still just the helpless damsel in distress type. I mean, I think later in the 50s and maybe in the 60s, you get films where the female characters are not only are they the leads, but they're the ones who are, taking charge of things and out there on the frontier, and they may be outlaws themselves, or they're defending their own homes or things like that. They're doing the things that men might have done in earlier Westerns, versus here where the female character is really in the same position that she would be in a Western where the man was the main character. It's just we're focusing more on her.
What jobs do you guys think you guys would have had in the Old West?
Dead, probably.
That's the perfect answer.
Jason, what job? And I could write, maybe you and I, we could write, pulp stories, right? We could do that. We could write the exaggerated fake adventures of, Buffalo Bill or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. My best hope would be as a traveling actor in one of those, barnstorming shows that stops from town to town. That's the best I could do out there.
Yeah, maybe I could be like Tom Hanks in News of the World. Do you see that movie where he's the guy who just travels from town to town and reads the newspapers to people?
Oh, yeah, you'd be great at that.
He's like a proto podcaster.
Yeah.
I think I could do that.
I mean, I could be a bartender. I could be a barkeep. I could do that, but
you get shot. I feel like every bar, every saloon in the Old West has gunfights like constantly in it.
Dave,
I don't know.
What about you? Whore?
I'd produce both of your shows.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Dave could be a traveling musician, right?
Mm-hmm.
They needed that.
Sure.
You could serenade.
A troubadour, perhaps?
Yeah, a troubadour.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd get shot. I'd be one of the extras that get shot in that bar fight. So.
Yeah. We all would. We really all would, I think. So, all right, we'll come back and talk more of our general thoughts on Duel in the Sun. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1946, we are talking about the box office champion Duel in the Sun. And I mean, I think has become clear here, we were not particularly into this film. It is aiming high and not reaching its heights.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before. This starts on the page. I think, like you've already pointed out, confused characters, right? That kind of oscillate on their motivations, especially the Jennifer Jones character who's like, you raped me, I hate you, now I love you. And, they blame her because she's part Native American for the rape. And there's no agency. The first scene, they make her out to be like kind of like this strong-headed, like independent woman. And then very quickly, she's not that at all, right? Joseph Cotten is the upstanding, the moral fiber, and that's fine, but he doesn't get to show anything. I don't know if that's how he chose to play it or whatever, but there was none of that magic. Like you said, we like him in a lot of other things. And then Gregory Peck, who's usually the good guy in everything, is like, I'm the most charming rapist you're ever going to meet. It's like, it's just misguided. It feels like in every way, like other than Lillian Gish, is there a character that you were rooting for? Joseph Cotten, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think you do. You're meant to root for him, and you're meant to root for Pearl as well. But I think you're right. The problem is she's so inconsistent. And I think from a modern perspective, we want to say, okay, Gregory Peck is the villain. And I think he is the villain, even from this movie's perspective. He's a bad guy. Not only does he rape Pearl, but he murders his own brother. He murders the very nice guy that Pearl decides that she's going to marry to get away from this ridiculous family love triangle. And he does it straight up in cold blood. He treats her terribly, even aside from the rape. But yeah, I mean, we don't, it's, I don't want to say that we don't sympathize with this victim of sexual assault, but the way that they've characterized her is not only is she like going to her abuser, but I don't know.
She's I'm going to say not what we're saying, but what the movie said. Okay. Yeah. So about that, yes, she's sexually assaulted. She's blamed for it. And then she's a soiled woman, right? She's not good enough for anybody at that point because she's been used and abused and it's her fault, right? So you have the Joseph Cotten character who is he's a good guy and, he's, but if you're rooting for him, he leaves for an hour, right? And then he comes back in the last 10 minutes. And when you're talking about Gregory Peck being the villain, that's the real only moment where I think that he comes, where they like actually are like, yes, he's the villain. Like they don't make him a villain when he sexually assaults her. They justify him shooting Pearl's soon-to-be husband, right? Like I feel like the only time they make him a villain is when he just shoots down his brother in cold blood. Even though you and I might feel he's the villain, I don't think the movie was trying to clearly make him the villain until that part.
Yeah, I mean, I partially agree with you. I think, unfortunately, and we've talked about this a lot, that the sexual assault is often, it's portrayed as like, he's a bad boy, you can't control him kind of thing. And that's like part of the attraction. And unfortunately, yes, I think that's the perspective that you get from the movie. And that's the perspective that you get from a lot of movies from this time period. But I do think the scene in which he kills the ranch hand, the nice guy that Pearl is going to marry, is portrayed as straight up villainous. He shoots the guy is unarmed. He shoots him essentially unprovoked for the sole reason of like, Pearl is mine. Even if I don't want her, she's mine, basically. I think at that point, we're meant to see, oh, he is a bad guy. He is a villain. Like maybe before he was being regarded as just like rough and manly in this way. But now we realize, no, he's a murderer.
I mean, I could see that. I mean, I could counter argue that the barkeep throws him, slides the gun down, and he was just proactively shooting before he got shot. But he was there looking for that, that fight and that murder. So yes, he is definitely the bad guy there. But there's so much of that like charming flirtation when he's not doing the rapes. It's just very strange, So.
It is. And I think if we want to sympathize with Pearl, we need to understand more how she's been traumatized. And whether it's the writing or Jennifer Jones's performance, you don't get that. You don't understand what she's feeling. I think, she's the main character. You want to understand her. And I think you're right that from that very first moment when we see her kind of dancing outside this bar in Mexico, and she's got guys looking at her, and she seems to enjoy this attention, and she seems to be in control of how she presents herself and what she wants out of life. You don't understand that. Or even when she arrives in Texas and she's dressed, in this sort of like traditional Mexican way, and she stands out and she's like, hey, I'm who I am, and I'm not going to, accommodate anyone. At that point, I was like, oh, this is an interesting character. This is this kind of woman. And how are they going to integrate her into this very obviously traditionalist American ranch? And that all just goes away really quickly.
So, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to word this right. I don't think they ever try to they make her the bad guy for being raped, right? Like that's what I'm saying. And then she, in turn, has that like, I hate you, I love you, like you're. But again, it's not like there's no reason for her to love him. Like he is a terrible person. Sure, he's good looking and he's charming, but you wouldn't be like, all right, I'll give you a mulligan on that one. It's just the motivation I just don't get. I mean, and I get that it was 1946, but it just didn't resonate in any type of sensical way with me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he has those redeeming qualities. I think there are plenty of stories about abusive men where you can see why the character is drawn to this person, even though they're terrible. And even though in the audience as viewers, we can see that they're terrible because they have these certain charms, or they turn on, that ingratiating.
Yeah, when we did the Cary Grant Suspicion movie, right? I mean, how could you not love that guy, even though he's a louse, right? So.
Right, exactly. And I think you're right that, yes, Gregory Peck is good looking, but we don't get a sense of this guy as like charismatic or charming, or even at first, like one of the first things, like after he meets her, like a minute after he meets her, he just grabs her and kisses her in this very forceful manner. He's not even like leading up to anything. He's always being verbally abusive to her. So, I mean, I think that makes it tougher for us to understand the situation and why she's continually
and sympathize with the characters as well.
Right. And it doesn't help that the movie doesn't really sympathize with Pearl.
I mean, I don't know who it sympathizes with. I really don't.
Right.
Josh, you've brought up in the past that in these first half of the century, I'd say all the way through the 50s, right? Like the motivation of a woman character is often like, I need to find a man, I need to have security, right? And I think like you and I can infer that from what we've seen on the screen, but they don't even like kind of present that as like hey, I need to make sure that I'm set up for the future. It was like, oh, Lute, you're going to Mexico. I'm going with you because you're Lute and I love you, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there is a bit, I mean, when she wants him to marry her, and you could argue that that's the idea, that she's glommed onto this guy, and even if he's abusive, he's someone who's going to marry her. And even before she is sort of quote unquote sullied by having been raped, she is biracial. She is always considered lesser because she's part Native American. And so if this rich white guy is willing to marry her, even if he might smack her around, she's going to go for it. So I think there is that. And part of the big sort of conflict between the two of them is that he's like, yeah, sure, baby, I'll marry you. And then he won't, in part because his father, the senator, Lionel Barrymore, who is also, you know, horrifically racist, is like, there's no way you are marrying this woman because of her race. And so I think there is some of that there.
Right. The senator, again, another character. I don't have any issues with Lionel Barrymore's performance on this, but it's like there's nothing redeeming about him at all, right? Even when he gets his hero moment, you're like, you're a dick for trying to be a hero right now. You know, going back to the Lute and Pearl relationship, a movie that we covered that did it so much better, this kind of toxic push and pull, and we hurt each other and we love each other. And obviously it didn't have the assaults, but I thought, you know, Wuthering Heights, which we covered in 39 or 41, really kind of set the, you know, blueprint for how to pull that off. And this ignored it completely. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great example, and I think Suspicion is a great example too, which is, you know, is more playful and mysterious. But Wuthering Heights is, I mean, not only that film version, but the book, and other versions of it is a template, for that kind of story of these tempestuous lovers, and they treat each other poorly, and they shouldn't be together, but they can't not be together. And in the audience, we feel that too. We like, oh, they shouldn't, they're wrong for each other, but oh, I want to see them together. And you never feel that way. And I think conversely, the other problem is that in this kind of story, you could also be like, oh, she shouldn't be with Gregory Peck. He sucks. I want to see her get with Joseph Cotten. But we don't have that either. And he goes off. I was really surprised, right? He goes off and he gets engaged to this other lady. And I thought, oh, he's going to break up with her. And then he's going to save Pearl and they're going to be together. But no, he's just engaged or married or whatever to this other boring lady who shows up.
Well, Josh, she's white. What do you want?
Yeah, that's true.
But, you know, from what you're saying, like, oh, she comes and, you know, maybe we're going to break it off. Again, Joseph Cotten, when Pearl first gets to the town, it's the Joseph Cotten character that picks her up. He's the first one that she meets. He's the good one. He's the forgiving one, right? And then he disappears for an hour. And that is a real momentum. Whatever momentum it didn't have, it had even less after that, right? Because he was such a major character who just disappeared. And now you don't have that push and pull anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true both in the love triangle and in
the brothers.
Yeah, the brothers and the sort of larger historical story that they're telling here sporadically, the idea of, you know, these southern ranchers who are being pushed aside by progress, you know, the railroad coming in and the government is taking eminent domain or whatever it is so they can run the railroad across their land. And that's the kind of Gone with the Wind stuff where it's like the characters are caught up in the sweep of history. And because the conflict, you know, that big moment with the railroad, and that's why Joseph Cotten leaves, is because he sides with the railroad company. But then he's gone. And then we don't have that escalation of them versus the government or them versus the railroad company or whatever. It's just the senator sitting there and grumbling and Lute raping.
Yeah.
So we got.
So that the lead up to that scene is one of the few moments where you're like, oh, we're going to finally get that John Ford style Western, right? All the ranchers from all over, hear the bells ringing and the horses converge from 4 different directions. And it looks great in these long shots. And then you see the battle lines and you're like, we're going to get a battle here. And we never get the battle. So really there's 3 memorable scenes that I guess deliver the 2 dance scenes. And then in the final scene, it's Pearl and Lute in a shootout against each other. That conceptually, like, I love that that's what it comes down to, but I just didn't care at this point. That scene was okay, though.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think conceptually, the idea of these lovers who are like, again, going back to Wuthering Heights, who are so terrible for each other, but cannot resist each other, that they end up like killing each other. And it's like, I have to kill you, but I love you, but I hate you, but I love you. And that should be really an emotionally like powerful ending. And it is not.
Right. Again, you have the, oh, Pearl, let me hold you one more time, Pearl, before I die, Pearl. And then she's like struggling to crawl to him for seemingly 12 minutes. And it's like, you know, they have one more kiss and it's like, I don't care. Just die. Stop already. Both of you. You're annoying me.
Yeah. I mean, and I think some of that does come down to, again, the miscasting, that maybe with other people in these roles, they could have conveyed that mixed passion that we want to understand, even if it wasn't quite captured in the script. And Gregory Peck and Jennifer Jones just don't really get that. Should we talk about Jennifer Jones being in brown face?
I mean, you've been begging me to get into it, so go for it. So.
No, I mean, I don't know. One of the things, I think someone on Letterboxd someone somewhere pointed this out, and I noticed it too, that the makeup, the brown face makeup is so heavy that her very white teeth look like they're glowing. It's like, you know, like Ross in that episode of Friends where he gets his teeth whitened too much or something.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's distracting.
Well, I mean, it's one of the many I mean, you know, what I think of when I hear that is like, you know, not to make the show too political today, but this would be like, oh, we have to delete all of this. Let's just whitewash all of it, or, you know, CGI in a Selma Hayek here or something, you know, like, I just feel like we have to keep this. This is our film history. It wasn't always pretty. Gone with the Wind has major problems. It's an amazing movie beyond that, but getting rid of it doesn't do anything. That doesn't help. So,
no, I mean, I'm not saying we should get rid of it for that.
I know you're not. So.
I think you're right, but I think it's, you know, it's something that that should be addressed and should be talked about and shouldn't be hidden. And I mean, this was common. We didn't have actors of color really playing. I mean, weirdly, right, you had blackface, but blackface was never really like white
realistic.
Black, right. It wasn't meant for a white actor to be playing a black character. It was meant as like a minstrel show thing. But if you had really any other kind of character of color, Asian characters, Latino characters, always pretty much you had white actors playing them. And if there were actors who were Latino, I was thinking of like, oh, who could you have actually like more authentically cast in this role? And, you know, I think of like Rita Hayworth, who actually was Latina. But of course, she had to hide that fact in reality, you know, when in order to get roles or whatever. And instead we have these white actors cast in these roles. So yeah, I mean, it's not something I'm saying that we should hide or get rid of or whatever. It was common,
yeah.
But it is noticeable. I mean, you watch this movie and you look at her and you're like, okay, she is slathered in this makeup.
You know, again, they made her like this, like, oh, she's Native American. She can't control her sex drive, right? And it's right. So debasing just as a philosophy that, like, I think the makeup is just another layer of how insulting it is to other cultures.
True. And I mean, you get that scene with Walter Houston as the preacher who basically tells her, like, you're too sexy. you are going to create sin in men by virtue of your sexiness, and you need to stop being sexy. And, you know, and even him, right? I mean, Houston conveys that like, he's like, you are, you know, a temptation and of the devil or whatever. And at the same time, he's very horny for her, I think, clearly in that scene.
Yeah, I mean, that guy is just, and he does a good job as that character, is just a bloviator, which we would never see today, a preacher who doesn't actually deliver on the goods, right? So it's just a misguided effort all the way through from today's standards. I don't know why it got as big as it did. So,
yeah, I mean, I think it's misguided even from 1946 standards, as those, you know, some of those critics point out. So, Dave, do you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, like Jason said earlier, the opening sequence, it started off so good. I was like, oh, this is actually going to be great. It looked amazing, you know, and then the characters come in And then I'm like, oh,
That
wow,
ruins it.
this is terrible. I really hated every character in this. So, yeah.
Yeah. What did you think? I mean, this movie has, again, I think part of its effort to be big, it has this extraordinarily long introduction. We have a prelude and an overture with all the music. I mean, I thought the music was good.
Yeah.
Did you like the music, Dave?
Yeah. I mean, generally speaking, it was good music of that time, but it doesn't help the movie though overall. It doesn't actually raise things up or anything.
Yeah, but it is I was waiting. I mean, I've used to, movies from this time period. Not all. I mean, it's still usually just big, fancy productions like this have overtures, but it was like we got the prelude and the overture, and it's really long. I think it's 12 minutes or something before the movie itself actually starts.
This is one of the first films to have a soundtrack album. The composer was Dmitri Tiomkin, and his score was recorded by Arthur Fiedler and the Boston Pops.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought the score was quite good, and I could see that being something that people would buy on record. And I had never thought of that. Like, when did soundtrack albums, start to become a thing? So I wonder, Dave, does Wax Trax have the 1946 release?
I guess I'm going to have to go check.
Duel in the Sun.
Yeah, let's find out.
That's old. I feel like that's older than what we usually ask you to dig for. So
we like that. But Josh, should we rate this thing out of 5 duels since we got 0 duels in the film?
Duels in the movie, but we'll give it 5. Yeah. Sure, go ahead.
I give it 2 duels. It just did. I wanted it to work, and it did not. And I like Westerns, and we all do. And this was not a good one.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 2.5 duels. The half duel maybe is what actually is in the film. But I mean, I agree with you pretty much on everything. I do think just the lavishness and the scope and some of the technical elements impressed me enough that I'll give it a little extra. But overall, pretty disappointing. So, Dave, how do you rate this?
2.5 from me as well. I was thinking about dropping it, but whatever, I'll leave it.
All right.
I've had enough of this movie.
He's really giving us good philosophy there.
Dave's apathy. So, all right, we'll come back then and talk about the legacy of Duel in the Sun. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this premiere of our season on the films of 1946, we are talking about box office champion Duel in the Sun. And as we were saying, this is really, of all the people involved, this is David O. Selznick's movie, but it kind of broke him. This was his last big major production. And as we said, he got married to Jennifer Jones. He kind of devoted himself to producing movies for her to appear in. And he closed down his production company and worked just as an independent producer on some well-known films, including Alfred Hitchcock's The Paradigm Case, and The Third Man, which we mentioned before, which is obviously a classic. But, this was the end of that Selznick era, really.
And we've seen this time and again with big producers and big directors. They have their 10 years of fame, and then all of a sudden it just goes away, and no one's there to help resuscitate their careers. And they just become, legends, but also kind of, I don't know what they do for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I mean, Selznick died relatively young. I think he was in his early 60s. So he was, maybe if he had lived longer, he'd have figured out a way to, move into. He did briefly work in some TV stuff toward the end of his career. And you could see this guy becoming like the proto Aaron Spelling or something like that, right? I mean, he's a big showman. He could have ended up this is basically the cinematic 1940s equivalent of Dallas, right?
Well, what's strange to me is Gone with the Wind and Rebecca, back-to-back Best Picture winners, amazing films, right? It's just to go from there to being basically, like you said, 6 years later out of the industry is a strange thing.
Yeah, but I mean, he puts it all on the line for this, and he had health issues, and again, got married, and maybe he wanted to slow down. I don't know, but it does seem like someone like that who's so powerful for so long, it's hard for them to just walk away from it.
Josh, this film is the only film ever to receive the Cinecittà Cup at Venice. It's the only time the award was given out, and that's all I could find out about it.
Yeah, Cinecittà is the name
The
of the
studio,
famous
yeah.
studio. Yeah, that I think we've talked about before when we've talked about some Italian films. And that was at the 1948 Venice Film Festival. So it took a little while for the movie to make it over there. But yeah, I don't know if that was like a, it was one of these supplementary awards we see. We talk about this a lot at Cannes too, where like different organizations give out unofficial awards to their picks for things. So I don't know if Cinecittà decided they wanted to award something at the festival and then never did again.
I don't know either, my friend. Jennifer Jones, 5 Oscar noms, 1 win, and a Golden Globe for The Song of Bernadette. Other films, Terminal Station, A Farewell to Arms. And then in the 70s, like so many got into those like big disaster movies, including The Towering Inferno.
Yeah, she retired after The Towering Inferno and, spent her later years as an activist. But we are actually going to talk about her again later in the season in my pick. A much better, I think, film. Hopefully,
Fucking better
will
be.
agree. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, overall, I like her in that movie, and it's a comedy. It's a very different kind of film and a very different kind of role for her. But I feel like she's not someone. You watch this movie and it's full of big stars, and you see Gregory Peck and Joseph Cotten and Lionel Barrymore and Lillian Gish and Walter Houston and even some of these supporting players. She's not someone I feel like who has.
I didn't know who she was.
Yeah, exactly. But at the time, she was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, and I mean, being the in a power couple obviously helps with all that stuff. So
yeah.
You go ahead, Josh. I was going to just say John Wayne as Lute was thrown around. That would be so weird.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I would say Gregory Peck is miscast, I don't think John Wayne would have been a better casting. I don't think John Wayne is good at certain things, but I don't know how good John Wayne would be at this bad
raping Lothario. Not really the John Wayne character.
I think you need someone like Cary Grant. I mean, who has the charm where you can be drawn to him and repulsed by him at the same time. And I think in this version, we're only repulsed by him.
Well, Gregory Peck, obviously a legend, Academy Award nom for Keys to the Kingdom movies, including Spellbound, Roman Holiday, Guns of Navarone, Cape Fear, To Kill a Mockingbird, which he won Best Actor for, 5 noms and 5 Golden Globes also.
Yeah, I actually just rewatched both versions of Cape Fear, which he's in both of them. And
so is Robert Mitchum.
And
Martin Balsam.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
And it's fun because Gregory Peck, as you said, he's known for playing these upstanding characters. I mean, people remember him most as Atticus Finch. And in the original Cape Fear, that's what he is. He's the upstanding guy who's terrorized by Robert Mitchum. And then in the remake, he gets to be totally hammy as this sleazy lawyer who like grandstands in the courtroom. And it was nice to see him kind of having fun with that role. So, he's in a small part in there. But yeah, I mean, a major star. Joseph Cotten, not as big a star, but very prolific, especially as a character actor. We talked about him in our episode on Citizen Kane, and he's actually in Heaven's Gate. I don't know if we talked about him in that episode, but that was one of his later roles. Gaslight, the movie that
Josh's favorite movie.
Gaslight is my favorite, which is a good movie. Shadow of a Doubt, a great Alfred Hitchcock movie, and he's very, very good in that. The Third Man, again, we mentioned. I like him in Niagara with Marilyn Monroe, kind of cool, underrated noir, but a great actor. And again, later in his career in a lot of B movies, and he'll show up in one of these kind of crappy horror things. But you're like, hey, it's Joseph Cotten. He's just there to make a paycheck, but he's elevated.
Yeah, I mean, Gregory Peck's in The Omen, right? So they're all doing stuff like that as they get older. Is The Third Man the best score of all time?
It might be. It's one of the most distinctive. I don't know, Dave. What would you say?
I mean, it's definitely distinctive. Definitely one of the ones that would be in the list for sure.
Yeah.
Lionel Barrymore, another Best Actor winner for A Free Soul, and of course, Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life. He made more than 60 silent films with D.W. Griffith. He was a director as well, and he is the legendary patriarch of the Barrymore family.
Yeah. I've seen A Free Soul actually, but a really long time ago, and I don't remember it. But I watched a movie called Guilty Hands it's a pre-code movie from the 30s fairly recently that he is great in. as this lawyer who decides he can get away with the perfect murder, and he's just kind of campy and fun. It's a super entertaining movie, but brilliant, prolific. And as we said, Lillian Gish's career as an actor went from 1912 to 1987.
Yep, 75 years. All-timer, bro.
I was trying to think of someone. Is there someone working still now who was working in the early 1950s, which would be the equivalent of that length of career? And I really don't think that there is.
I don't know. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, yeah, I can't think of anyone. So
the closest I was thinking of was Jane Fonda, but her first role was in 1960. Yeah, 1960, but still. So just, amazing.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk Douglas was in movies up till a few years ago, right? So that would have been one.
Yeah, well, he definitely can't be in any movies anymore because he's dead. But yeah, I mean, or someone like Norman Lloyd, who was in films, into the point where he was like 100 or something,
right?
Like
or
that.
The dude, who's the great Asian shopkeep in everything, right?
Gremlins. James Hong. Yeah.
Lillian Gish. If we didn't mention Sweet Liberty, that's her other big one there. One other cool thing about Lionel Barrymore, he was the first director to move a microphone on a soundstage. And he was an interesting guy, illustrator, horticulturalist, historic novelist. So, talented people. We've talked about Walter Houston before, and another one who has an Oscar. You could see where everyone's like, "Oh, we got to go see this movie. Look at this cast."
Right. Yeah. Two of those, I mean, between the Barrymores and the Houstons, those are two of the biggest, Hollywood dynasties that are still going. And you got both of these patriarchs here in this film. King Vidor also had an amazingly long and prolific career, started in the 1910s, and was this as I said, this kind of go-to guy for big studio productions. This was later in his career. He did make Beyond the Forest, which I've seen was kind of campy, with Joseph Cotten and Bette Davis, adaptations of The Fountainhead and War and Peace. But after 1959, he left Hollywood. He had a real tough time. There's a long list, of unrealized projects on his Wikipedia, things that he could not get made because he lived into the 1980s, but just wasn't able to get these projects off the ground. Made a couple of kind of weird short films, one in 1964 and one in 1980. 5 nominations for Best Director, never won, but did get an honorary Oscar in 1979. So an amazing career still.
Yeah, a legend. And speaking of people who've been screwed by the Oscars, we should mention Orson Welles narrates this movie for like 1 minute and then never comes back.
And weirdly, he's the second narrator of the film, because you have some other, I'm not sure who it is, like unnamed narrator during the overture, who's like explaining the historical context.
It's a mess, dude. Let's just call it a day on this one. So,
I will say that despite our dislike of this film, one person who loves this movie is Martin Scorsese.
The first movie he says he ever saw. So I could understand that.
Yeah, and it clearly had an effect on him. So he won the David O. Selznick Achievement Award from the Producers Guild in 2024. And he devoted a substantial portion of his speech to talking about this movie. He said, "Slashes of color, movement, the landscapes, stunning set pieces like the dance in the cantina, the approaching horsemen lining up against the railroad, the mysticism of the film mixed with the profane. It's played out on a larger-than-life screen by larger-than-life actors. At one point, Lionel Barrymore says, 'There's a strange glow in the sky tonight. Those figures of him in the buggy are silhouetted against a red sky.' That's 1946, and I was sure that those figures wound up in my film Killers of the Flower Moon, the sequence with the prairie on fire at night. It stayed with me all those years."
Yeah, there it is, man. You wrapped it up for us, buddy. You did it.
So Scorsese, perhaps with, you can see, who do you listen to, us or Martin Scorsese?
I fear we will come up against him again at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Probably so. So that is Duel in the Sun, and that is this episode of Awesome Movie Year. You can check us out online and on social media.
We're at awesomemoviepod.com. That's right, pod.com. I'm Jason Harris Comedy, or Jason Harris Comedy or Jay Harris Comedy or Jason Harris Comedy on all the things. You can find me at Letterboxd to go for Jason. If you watch one of our movies, tag it with Awesome Movie Year. Also, we're on social media at Awesome Movie Year on the gram and on the FB.
You can find some old things from me at joshbellhateseverything.com. I'm at Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook, at Signal Bleed on Blue Sky and on Letterboxd. And check out our producer David Rosen's awesome podcast, Piecing It Together.
Check out Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts and follow us on social media at Piecing Pod.
Jason, what's in our next episode?
Josh, I think we're going to elevate this season already. We've already talked about one legendary director. Let's go to a first feature by maybe the most legendary director, Ingmar Bergman's first feature, Crisis.
So tune in next time for Crisis, and thanks for listening to Awesome Movie Year.
Thank you for listening to Awesome Movie Year. Make sure to follow Awesome Movie Year on Facebook, at Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and at Awesome Movie Year on Instagram. And if you like the show, review us and rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.
Is that your dog barking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Harvey's coming back from the dead. Says, haunt us on Awesome Movie Year.
Oh, Dave's got 5 new dogs. Come on.